We're already sitting down and discussing this with Congress, and this is going to be something that happens absolutely within the first 90 days of this presidency. We're going to have a major tax reform, biggest tax reform since Reagan, and it's not just going to be a cut in corporate taxes, but it's also going to be a very large middle-income tax cut that's going to help this country.
All right, Donald Trump's nominee for Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin there, calling for the largest tax overhaul in the United States since Ronald Reagan, but also adding it will not be a net tax cut for the upper income because many deductions will be eliminated.
Joining us now from the #1 business network, as you now know, our Fox Business All-Stars, Chaz Gasparino. And welcome to Wall Street Week for the first time, Dagen McDowell.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Great to have you here. So, Charlie,
Smile, buddy.
Charlie, Charlie, this has all been good. We've got business people that are going to take the positions of Treasury and Commerce. They know how to get tax cuts through, and this is all good news.
Let's back up a minute. I think one of the best things about President-elect Trump is a pro-growth agenda. I've always said if he got elected, I never thought he would, but if he did, it would be great eventually for the markets because he wants to cut taxes, cut regulations, and basically bring free markets back. The real issue with Trump, and I think the markets, because the markets are now factoring in all that less regulation, all those tax cuts, is rationalizing the massive amount of spending he says he wants to do on infrastructure, which, as Dagen has pointed out time and time again, could be an issue, particularly when as the long bond spikes. That could be a problem for the stock markets. Rationalize that and this anti-trade rhetoric. If he really goes and renegotiates NAFTA, those are things that are not good for the markets.
The appointments this week, as thinking about long-term investors and thinking about investing, is this a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a good thing if these guys, if Mnuchin and Wilbur Ross, if they execute in the way the markets are factoring in right now. The markets are factoring in a broad-based tax reform. Make it easier to do business in this country by loosening regulations, rolling back regulations. Take the corporate tax rate down, take that repatriation, get money back into this country, lower income taxes for Americans. However, if they start going down the path of protectionism, Trump talking about this past week about consequences if you try to take jobs out of this country, that could be a problem. And also, you could, regardless of where...
How about the spending that you have always talked about?
If you're going to go out and tell me you're going to borrow $1 trillion, that is horrible for the deficit. They're saying that they're not. Wilbur Ross is saying that we can get to $1 trillion in spending by offering tax breaks.
It's kind of amazing, isn't it not, that you've got the uber capitalist, the billionaire entrepreneur now in office going out and saying, look, to these companies, you got to start doing more to protect these jobs here. But think about it, right? Just like it took an anti-communist like Nixon to go into China, it's taking the billionaire entrepreneur to go and negotiate with some of these companies.
You just misread his whole business record. Donald Trump has never been a guy that risked capital like a real entrepreneur. Donald Trump was a guy that used the levers of government throughout his career to attain a fairly good branding empire.
By the way,
that was it. No, that was it.
Charlie, the guy, he got somewhere
Don't make him into Steve Jobs, please. I mean, please.
But a good entrepreneur, Charlie, a good entrepreneur.
He's not Steve Jobs.
A good entrepreneur looks at the system and sees how to take advantage of what the system gives you.
Since you brought up Richard Nixon, the Wall Street Journal editorial page on Friday said conservatives be careful about backing up Donald Trump on increasing populist rhetoric about trade. Just like conservatives got behind Nixon on price controls and the creation of the EPA, you will rue the day that you got behind this
and let's be real clear.
So one thing that Steve Mnuchin said, which, again, the Journal takes issue with, is when he talks about no absolute tax cut for the wealthy. And they got on his case and said, stop the squeamishness about giving wealthier people tax breaks, just like Mitt Romney.
Charlie, I do need to ask you one thing before we run. You heard Joe and you heard Tobias, and Trish brought up the point that everybody's bullish now. You go out every night, you talk to everybody. Everybody's bullish. Is that something to be worried about?
Well, for the reasons, I think it's good to be bullish now if he carries through what he's doing because it's great. But for the reasons she points out, Dagen pointed out, be wary. The long bond is spiking not because it's saying that we're going to have a really great economy in the future. They're saying that we may have inflation, we may have huge deficits, because you have to rationalize everything Donald Trump is saying. That's what the long bonds say. By the way, long bond traders are generally smarter than stock traders.
Well, you know, the bond market is always smarter than the stock market, so you've got to pay attention to what's been happening.
So I get worried when I see borrowing costs going up, because mortgage rates are going up. That's going to hurt somebody who wants to refinance or buy a home. Second thing, some tech stocks have fallen out of bed, so there's no bull market
for like Amazon. That's people repositioning, right? I mean, the entire stock market thought Clinton was going to win. So what did they do? They went long tech. They were short infrastructure. Now they have to.
But you got your hat handed to you if you bought Amazon.
But that might be a good thing, because all those liberal tech companies are scared of Trump. I mean, there is a trade like I'm scared of Donald Trump and his attack on tech trade. That may not be real, but just might be a knee-jerk.
Thanks, guys, for joining us. Next week, our guest is NASDAQ CEO Bob Greifeld. We'll see you then.